Right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. We have Stan, who is our founder, the founder of Simply Bread Co. And we have Mendel, who's the product manager here at Simply Bread Co. And we are just gonna have a conversation about the company, about the oven, the app, and at about 30 minutes, we'll open it up for questions, and we'll do a Q&A session with everybody. So, all right, so we'll just dive into it. Do you want to say hello, Stan and Mendel?
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
They're in our studio kitchen where we film all of our recipe videos, and also where Stan's wife does some baking as well. So, all right. So what inspired you to start Simply Bread, and what is your long-term vision for the company?
I can probably answer that one. Yeah, I've got a background in technology, in business, worked most of my career in the motion picture and TV industry, and wanted to do something else. And during COVID, I think I actually started just before COVID baking, and wanted it to, just one day I was like, like a small bakery, that would be just such a cool idea. I don't know, because people were always asking for my bread, right? Colleagues and neighbors, etc. And then I got into the Micro Bakery Connection, I think, is a Facebook group, where Mendel and I actually met through that group. And it's just like the whole world opened for me, like, oh, this is actually a thing. People are doing this. And then I wanted to buy an oven. Well, I started with my Dutch ovens, tried to scale it in a sort of rental kitchen, like one of those ghost kitchens with big convection ovens and 6 Dutch ovens or 8 combo of Dutch combo Dutch ovens, and that was just brutal. That didn't go very far. And then I was like, maybe you should buy an oven. And the ovens back then on the market were just like, it was like you couldn't get them and shipped from overseas. And because I have a background in product development and engineering, I was just like, let's just make an oven for rather than wait 12 months to get an oven, I'll just, like, if I need to wait 12 months, I'm going to build one for myself. And then I put something online about it in a Facebook group, and then it just went out of hand. And so I want to do something else than like building companies and doing technology, and then, but just in a different way, which is great. Of course, it's a business, and we've got employees, and we need to make money, etc. But long term, I just love this idea of bringing fresh bread back to communities. I think all of us do. I think the community aspect for me is the most important in a world where everyone is always online, etc. I think we're just all sort of so desperate for real connection with people, and I think bread is really the ideal product for it. Everyone loves bread. So that's a bit the long-term vision. And that's really the essence behind it, sort of bringing that back. And I think our long-term vision is really helping people from their kitchen oven through maybe one of our ovens, but even all the way to a storefront or something, right? We already have customers that started with their kitchen oven, got one oven, got 2 ovens, now getting a 3rd oven. Not getting into a storefront, but because most of us are not like trained business people, right? We don't all have an MBA or something, so I think we can help a lot with, we've already been sort of thinking about furniture and about supplies and flour, and so the long-term idea and vision is a little bit being the operating system behind independently, privately owned bakeries. I think that's a little bit the idea. And we're going to do this through a few things. We, of course, have the oven, which is crucial to scale. The problem I had from day one when I was running my bakery was taking orders and managing orders. It's just a nightmare in a spreadsheet and through social media and text messages and Post-it. So that's where we had that idea of like really building an app that can be sort of your management tool, right? Your customer relationship management tool in a way. So we spend a lot of time on that. And I think, I would love to, we have some swag and some little accessories, but I would love to do some mixers or, just some other stuff down the road. And then ingredients, I mean, that's a little bit logistically more complicated, but I think so many, I mean, we're lucky here where we have like central milling that's fairly available, but still not easy to get. So we would love to also, like, you know, somewhere make a partnership with a mill or something, or with some grains, or, you know, something specific and special you can get. So yeah, so that's a bit the long-term vision for us. And then there's maybe also the part where maybe it becomes like Simply Bread becomes a destination, or the app, or I don't know how we're going to do it, it becomes a destination for maybe the general public to find bakeries, right? Because we've got so many of them now, and we're adding so many of them. It could also be like, if you're somewhere, you could find a bakery, right? So it's more of a sort of storefront or something, or like Yelp for bakeries or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, similar experience for me. I think this company was kind of born out of necessity. So I came from the bakery side as well. My friend started a bakery, bought a couple ovens, really the only oven that was on the market at the time. And as Stan mentioned, it was a 6 to 12 month lead time. You wait a long time for it. And then when you got it, it wasn't the greatest product. It had some issues with it. And there was plenty of discussions on these Facebook groups that we need more. As the market was growing during COVID, we needed more options out there, preferably a US-based manufacturer who could build a quality product. And I come from the product construction side of things, and Stan and I met on one of these Facebook groups, had a similar idea, and then things just kind of happened from there. So, and the same thing with the app, like you said, I also was managing things on a spreadsheet. My spreadsheet got that complicated that it kind of stopped working. It wouldn't load on my mobile anymore. It only load on my computer. So there was a necessity to have something that was built for the way that us micro bakers sell to our customers, which really didn't exist at the time. So yeah, the products that we have currently are the things that were really desperately needed by the community. And like Stan said, we know that bakers are good at baking, and while they may be good at other things, they're not necessarily good at everything. And whether that's helping with filing your taxes correctly, or getting around the cottage laws, or sourcing your ingredients, or whatever it might be, social media, these are the types of things that I know I hate, and I'm sure a lot of other bakers hate as well. So helping a baker do what they love, which is do the baking, and we try to step in and help wherever they need help outside of that. That's kind of our vision a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Feel free to post any questions in the chat. Megan will pick them up, and we'll answer them in a few. One of the second questions was support for new bakers. How does Simply Bread support micro bakers who are just starting the business? What type of community do you want to create? We'll be creating a community for users who don't have social media. How do you see the community that we have now growing? Maybe the first answer could be you, Mendel. Support, I think it's
I mean, similar to what we said before. Obviously, we're giving the baker tools that they need. The oven is a necessity, the app is a necessity, and then obviously we have other accessories and merch that are also required for sourdough. And then there's the vision that's further than that, which is all the other things that a baker has to do to run the business. That's the type of support that we don't want to just be an oven company. We want to be a bakery industry supporting company, that we help with all the parts of the industry that are needed for the bakery to exist. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really working hard, or trying to like put like support and on, you know, on the top of the list. I mean, it's not easy when I mean, it's sort of scary, right? If you buy a product, I mean, it's a fairly you know, it's a product that at a little bit of a higher cost because we're in the US. So we also need to give something back there, right? I mean, it's all part of it. I think we've been really trying to do our best on the support side. And Mendel has done a lot of that, of course, not just like, you know, because people just don't know, is the oven, is there a problem with the oven? Is my baking, is my dough, is my temperature, is the season, is the humidity, right? It's just not like just the oven. So we've been trying hard to help people, not just with any oven problems. I mean, we have the technical, you know, the technicalities of checking if the oven works, right? We know if the oven works, or is broken, or if there's a heating element broken, or so we know this. So it's, you know, we just need to make sure the oven works, and then really help people with their baking. Yeah, and I think like being again, it's like US based. Our support people are here, and we added someone to the team. So I think we're sort of proud of that part, I think.
Yeah, like Stan says, it's our mission is to make sure that you as a baker, you're successful. And while I would say 50% of the support calls we get may be something that we have to solve with the oven, and the other 50% are not necessarily oven related. There's, as we know, there's so many variables in sourdough baking, and anything could be contributing to lackluster results in your bake. And we really try to make sure that our team is familiar with the baking process, how sourdough works, and doesn't just answer the call and say, hey, well, there's nothing wrong with the oven. You're going to have to find where the problem is elsewhere. We try to help you navigate whatever the problem might be, whether it's in your fermentation process, in your fridge temperature, in the baking process itself, that it could be anything, and we'll stick it with you. We'll answer all your questions as best we can. And we try to train up our team to really be familiar with this baking process so that we're able to help you outside of the oven as well.
Answering the community question. So there's a few ideas. We have the Simply Bread Facebook community, which is pretty active, I think. And there's a lot of good ideas in there. So, well, but someone says like, well, if we don't have social media. So that's been, I think we've been thinking of actually putting it into the app, right? To put like a social media channel into the app for our users and bakers, so everyone can use that app more as a community app thing, with a bit of a.
Yeah, we want people to be able to, the app is, well, it does what it does because that's what it needs to do. And we'll get into that soon as well. But we want it to be a place where you can come and get everything you need, whether it's recipes or a baker's percentage calculator, cost calculator, these types of things. But we also want it to be a place where you can just jump into the social side of it and interact with other bakers, get help, talk about a specific recipe in the comments section, and be able to get that support and not have to be logged into a Facebook group, etc. So we want to bring that community support within the app as well.
Maybe moving on to one of the next questions about the oven. Why Simply Bread oven versus other ovens on the market? Any new developments? So I looked, when I started, I was like, I tried a few other ovens, or I looked into it. I did a lot of research. I did my research, and there were just a bunch of things that I really wanted to solve. I think the viewing window was one, just have a large viewing window, which seems to be trivial, but it's actually fairly complicated because it's heavy and it's costly to do, and mechanically it's difficult. So that's not an easy, there's a reason why some of these ovens have really small windows, just complicated and expensive to do. Then there's the even baking, which is a bit of a two-edged sword, right? Because a lot of the ovens, because there's no good, it's like one oven with it's not three separate, or, it's like not like a deck oven where you've got three separate enclosed decks. It's still one oven, and heat rises, so it gets really hot. If you just do a straight out bake with some of the ovens on the market, your top loaves, you need to shuffle them, right? I mean, there's people who work around it and pull them out early or something, but it's still a bit of a hassle to shuffle them around. And that's just time consuming because you're just next to your oven constantly shuffling loaves and watching them, etc. No, we were able to solve that through software. In a way, it's the only way to really solve it, because the heat rises and there's certain thermodynamics to the oven. You cannot you can have like a thermostat per heating element, but that doesn't really work either that well, because you in theory need to adjust these thermostat constantly, but is that like a dynamic effect, right? Like it starts heating and then the top one will start kicking in and the one above it starts kicking in. So you sort of need to have a dynamic algorithm that controls the temperature and controls the heating elements to solve that problem. The only way to do that is through software and like a sort of control algorithm.
Yeah, it's a very difficult problem to solve. My friend actually upgraded to a much larger commercial deck oven. These things cost, close to $100,000, and he also gets uneven baking. So I think it's kind of an accepted reality in the industry, but we didn't really treat it that way. We knew that we had the ability to make it much better, if not perfect, for our bakers. And the complication, as Stan was saying, is difficult because you've got 3 separate decks with 4 heating elements, and they all affect each other because it's not 3 separate boxes. They are all in one box. And but we're essentially able to, with 3 separate sensors, 1 for each deck, and the oven in the software is treating each deck as if it's a separate oven.
But they're still coupled in a way, right?
They're coupled in a way, but the software does it in a smart way where it's able to modulate each deck and make sure that one deck stops heating when it's ready and the other deck keeps heating if it's not ready yet, and we can get an even bake. And we also allow you to, we know that everything has tolerance, right? The parts that we use, the heating elements, the sensors, everything has a tolerance in manufacturing. So we know that nothing's gonna be perfect straight out of the factory. We give you that ability within the oven to make some fine-tune adjustments based on the baking that you're seeing. If you find that one of your decks is browning slightly faster than the other, then you have the ability in the software to make a slight adjustment, tell the oven, hey, just compensate a little bit for the things that I'm seeing, and really dial it in so that you load everything at one time, you unload everything at one time, never have to shuffle anything, and can really focus on making your croissants or something else while the bake is going on.
No, the flip side of that is we need to be very careful because it's still, it's still one oven. You cannot have the top deck at a lower temperature than the middle deck or something, right? It doesn't work that way, right? Because it's just one oven, it's one box. We just even the temperature out. And you've got these seconds. So we also try to spend a lot of time on educating people because we don't want it to, we want it to be an advantage, but we don't want to complicate people's lives. Yeah. Right. And there's people who are maybe not as technical and so sometimes it gets a little bit hard.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance between giving someone too many tools and then they kind of get lost in it versus, kind of the Apple style of let's just make it as simple as possible and we'll take care of the rest. So I think we've got that balance there where we're trying to give the baker whatever tools they need to get it right, but not go overboard, because there's always more data and tools that you can give someone that then there's just more questions that are maybe not questions. And so we don't want to make things overly complicated. We want to make it as simple as just load your bread and then unload your bread, and everything in between happens within the oven. One of the questions that we did get was about whether the oven is customizable, if you can customize it on your order. I think these ovens don't really need so much. There's not that much that can be customized with it. I think the only couple things that would be customizable would be, does the door open from the right or the left? Is the steam release located on the right or the left? And we've had, through the many hundreds of ovens that we've sold and shipped, we've only had maybe 2 or 3 times where people requested that. So I think it's a very complicated thing to pull off in manufacturing, because now your parts, the parts are completely different, obviously. So it's not something that we think is really required at the moment. There could be future products that have more customization in them. But at the moment, we haven't seen a demand that really requires too much customization on the oven.
On the new developments, we're always improving on process and quality, etc. Right? There's no big new developments on the roadmap for the moment. We'll probably get soon back a little bit more into the software. The dream always has been a little bit about maybe baking profiles or something, right? Or maybe a better timer or something, that you could, and that ties maybe also a little bit into the app. I always forget to release the Steam because I'm busy, I'm answering my emails, I'm just turning my back, and then, oh, my timer, I didn't reset my timer. So I think it would be really cool if, or integrate into the app or integrate into the oven, right? Where just beep and display, and there's so many, there has been questions oh, can you make something like a motorized steam release, that the steam release opens automatically and closes up? We could, but the cost would be, you've got a hot oven with moving parts and dust and grease, and right, it's sort of technically, yeah, we can technically, I would love we could, but these are the things well, that's going to cost you $2,000 or something, or it's just too expensive to do.
Yeah, but a lot can be done. What we've created here, being that it's software powered and Wi-Fi controlled, we're able to send over-the-air updates that greatly improve the functionality of the oven, and with our app, which right now is more of a selling platform, but will be integrated with the oven more heavily soon in the future. There's so much that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Baking profiles, for example, this is the type of thing where if you tell the oven that I know that I want to release my steam at the 18-minute mark or turn on my heating elements at this particular point, it just can save all of that for you. And whether it's that it does it for you automatically or rings a timer on your Google Home as well as your Alexa or your oven itself or your phone, whatever it might be, the technology ability is all there. And we're constantly working to add more functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of look at it like buying a Tesla. It doesn't stay the way it is when you get it. It's constantly getting better. And that's the way we want you to feel about your oven as well, is that the way it works right now should be good, should be perfect, but it should always get better as we release more updates.
Energy efficiency, I think we did quite a bit of work of making it really energy efficient. People have been asking about electrical costs. We can give you the math, right, if you like to. Don't forget that the oven has a power rating, right? The oven says 3,000 watts. And of course, if you run the oven for an hour, that's 3 kilowatt hours, which costs you 50 cents or something. But don't forget, like once the oven is a little bit like your hot tub or something, like once it's heated up, it uses much less energy, so the first hour heating up will cost you 50 cents or something, maybe, or 40 cents or 30 cents. But from then on, keeping it hot, because there's so much inertia to it and so much insulation to it, it actually will cost a fraction of that, right? So some people have been doing this, the oven is 3,000 watts. So that's 3 kilowatt an hour at 20 cents, 30 cents. I don't know what your electrical cost is, depends where you are. And I'm baking 6 hours, so it's $3. That's not actually how it works, right? You almost need to put a power meter or something behind it, and we can give you that information. But once it's heated up, you need very little energy to keep it going.
Yeah, we could see that actually on our side. We can see exactly when a heater is on. There's 4 heaters in your oven. We can see every second that the heater is on or off. And logically, that's the way it works, that once your oven is heated up to temperature, the heaters don't have to stay on the entire time to maintain that temperature. So they're only triggering on and off infrequently in order to maintain that temperature. It is very cheap to keep the oven at temperature. And it's obviously not super expensive to heat it up in the first place, but it's not, like Stan said, it's not that the entire time your oven is running, I'm constantly spending the amount of money that it would cost to run all 4 heaters.
Yeah. Safety features. So there's of course some electrical safety features, right? If there would like a sensor be broken or a heating element sort of that doesn't switch off, there's like what we call a high limit thermostat. Maybe you notice that little switch in the back of the oven. If that pops, that's like a sort of safety feature. Are there any? It stays in oven, right? I mean, people, you need to be careful. I mean, there's been a ton of questions if we can program the oven to switch on automatically, like 3 hours before you start baking. This has been an ongoing discussion with regulatory agencies, with our lawyers, with our insurance companies' lawyers, with bakers' insurance companies' lawyers. It's just all the insurance and everyone is afraid that someone would leave something in the oven overnight, right? Like leave a loaf. I mean, it happened to me. Leave a loaf in it, leave a plastic bin in it, whatever, right? And if then an oven switches on automatically, that's a little bit of a liability. Technically, it's possible. We're still looking into it's a bit of a tough one from a legal and liability perspective to fix. We've been going back and forth on it.
There's definitely a pathway to making things like that possible. But safety is our number one priority. We're not going to do anything that jeopardizes the safety of the oven. It could be that it's not with this particular oven. It could be a future product that we release might be able to do it if certain components are required. But there's a pathway to making it possible. But our priority is not adding features for the sake of them. Our priority is making sure that the oven stays safe.
Maybe let's segue a little bit into the app. There's a bunch of questions. User statistics. There is quite a few people using it. We've got several hundreds of users, I think.
Yeah,
a lot of them some of them have an oven, some of them don't.
Yeah, the app is really unrelated to the oven
at this point.
We've fairly new with the app. It's been around since just before the beginning of the year. So late last year is when we kind of released it to the general public, and it's been growing very, very rapidly, and we've seen great success with it. So that's really nice to see it. I'm not sure how many of you know too much about the app, but we can dive into some of the details on how it works.
I think what we've been seeing, though, which is encouraging, is that it's actually working in the sense that we see consistency and growth for the users, right? Because the challenge, I know it, like, and you see these questions all over, right? On Facebook, on Instagram, is like, how can I have some consistency in my business, that it's not like 1 week 2 loaves, the next week 30 loaves, and how do I keep that going and not spend all my time on Facebook and, hey, like, I've got bread tomorrow, right? And that just depends on the Facebook algorithm and the people that are just like, you know, it's just displayed to them or not, right? Maybe they're looking at something else that day or something, or not looking at it. So I think the app, with the mechanism of the text messages and the emails, just gives a much more consistent, you know, you don't have these, you're not so dependent on your own communication, right? You just program the bake day, and whenever you tell it, it sends out a text message to our customers confirm an order, and you see all your orders coming in. So yeah, I think that's the most important metric for us, right? That people have more consistency, and growth is, of course, limited in what people want to do, right? Like, you cannot like grow infinitely, otherwise you're gonna, you know, but people seem to grow and with less hassle.
Yeah, we've seen.
Can you guys kind of just describe the app for the people who have just joined and may not know about what it is exactly?
So the app is really to solve a problem that I think we all know is there's no real, until the app came out, there's no real platform out there that allows us to sell to our customers in the way that we know we need to sell, which is on a per bake day basis. That I'm going to sell X, Y, and Z loaves on Tuesday, but I'm also going to sell those same loaves on Thursday in separate quantities, and they have to be kept separate. They obviously are not interchangeable. It's not like I'm selling 100 t-shirts on Shopify where I could just load up the inventory and then reload it once it sells out. It works very differently. So that's the basic functionality of the app, is that we want you to be able to sell in that fashion on a per bake day basis, and that your customers have an easy way to go and purchase it. And it's clear to your customer that this loaf, it could be the same organic sourdough loaf available on Tuesday, this is for Tuesday, and the same loaf is also available on Thursday, and they know which day they're purchasing for. It's all very clearly laid out that way. I think to what Stan was saying before, we have found that I think 2 things mainly have helped increase consistency and sales for our customers. One is that we all know it. I don't check Instagram enough, so I'm not going to see the local bakers post that there's some bread available. If someone was to text me, I'm going to see that. So the automatic texting reminders, there's an announcement saying, hey, there's a new bake day available, and we can also send out a reminder that says, hey, ordering is closing in a few hours. Make sure you get your order in. We find a lot of people get that jolt and like, oh, I don't want to miss out this week. So they use that reminder to place their order. And then the other thing that we found was very difficult for bakers in the past was that people were using systems in ways they weren't designed. If I'm using, Squarespace or something, it's not really designed to do it like this. And we saw some very interesting things where people would use like the categories of what's supposed to be like men's and women's clothing categories to separate their Wednesday and Thursday bake days. And then it's so confusing to your customer. They have to have a lot of clarity in the description on what's what and what the pickup schedule looks like. So by creating a process for your customer where people have no patience these days, we know that's like the TikTok lifestyle. So if they can jump on your website, jump on your storefront, and really clearly see what's available, add it to their cart, and then within 2 steps, they're checked out and paid for it, and they know when they're picking it up, you're going to get more orders. But if you have a convoluted, difficult process for your customers to follow, then people just drop out and they don't end up placing the order. So I think it's those reminders, text and email reminders, as well as a really clean and simple process for your customer that has seen it's been able to help our customers grow in their sales and maintain consistency.
There's a few questions about features. Timer feature, yes, we're working on it, both for the oven and the app, that you get a bit of, but that's something I'm struggling with, and sort of like, when do I load, unload, etc. Integration, does it integrate with other smart home devices, baking tools? We would love to. We have the technology to ask your Alexa what the oven temperature is, right? You're in the kitchen and your oven is in another room. You should be able to ask your Alexa what your oven temperature. The technology is there. It's just like prioritizing. We've been spending so much time on really getting the core functionality of the app right. It's on the is on the wish list and the roadmap. User feedback, always welcome. How do you incorporate it? It's, we triage it in a way, right? What is urgent, important, so that's just an ongoing process. If you have any suggestions, always welcome, to me or Mendel or to one of our other email addresses or channels. Educational resources. Does the app provide educational resources? That's also something, like we would like to go a little bit more into adding your recipes to it, being able to calculate percentages, etc., or like percentages, calculate your ingredients. And I think we, like at one point we're shooting here in the studio, we're trying to shoot a lot of educational content, recipes, etc. No, the idea is to sort of like, the idea is to sort of all get that together and have one experience, right? Where the app is like an community where you can talk to other bakers to get feedback or help. A recipe sort of functionality where you can, it would be great if you like, if we could like, we do a baguette recipe on our YouTube channel. No, you have that also in the app, and now you can sort of import that recipe and it will like right away give you timing and instruct, like then it all becomes, you could have an iPad or something and you can just follow instruction, like, because I think that's sort of, we're all busy. And
yeah, the app, that there's really endless abilities that we have. For example, if the app knows what your baking formula is for your particular sourdough loaves, and it also knows how many products were ordered. So it knows how many organic sourdough loaves were ordered for that particular bake day, and it knows how much flour and water and salt you use for that loaf. It could then spit out and it also, if it can know some other things, if we inform it, it can know what's your inoculation rate. Do you feed your starter? Do you make a levain? Do you feed your starter in a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio? What's your process there? And it can start the reminding process way back 2 days before, when you have to start feeding your starter, growing your starter, building your levain. It can know all this information and then give you all the information that you need. All right, now you have to load your X amount of flour, etc. So we really want to have it as a one-stop shop where it knows all the information about your products, about your bakery, and it's able to keep you. You don't have to have a reminder magnetized to the wall there that is constantly telling you to do a stretch and fold. Like if it knows all this information, it just tells you all of it. It tells you now it's time to do another stretch and fold, do your final shape, set your fridge temperature, etc. It could all be programmed in the app. So there's a really long-term roadmap for making sure that we can keep growing this, not just to be a selling platform, but that it really helps you in all parts of the bakery and making your products.
We had a few questions about payments and finances. Maybe first about the oven. There was a question about installment payments. So we don't really do installment payments. The question about financial assistance, any financial assistance or programs. So we've partnered with a finance company, an external is a bank, right? Because we're not a bank, right? We cannot just provide credit or something. Well, for sure not to consumers. And so we've got this partner. It's called, funny enough, the financial institution, which is a public company, is called Bread Financials. Funny enough, don't ask me why. It's just pure luck that there's a finance company called Bread. They've got a pretty good system that integrates with our online store. And so you just, if you have a reasonable credit rating, they will code it and they will, but they are actually buying the oven from us and sort of selling it or financing it for you, right? It's like putting it on your credit card. We don't have a lot of influence over it. A lot of people are asking, sometimes people don't have the right credit history, or, so it takes a little bit of trial and error sometimes to put it on 2 cards, or maybe do like, so if people have a bit of constraints as budget, then we try to work with them. Maybe they can do a smaller down payment and then finance the half other of it, etc. Right? Or putting it on 2 cards or something, and that in general does work. Most people, though, when they take the jump, then like it pays surprisingly for itself at one point, the oven, right? Because you just can crank out so much more.
Yeah, it's a consistent theme that we see, is that it's any big appliance is going to be expensive. Any bakery related product is going to be expensive, and people are concerned about how am I going to pay for it with the money that I'm getting right now in my business? But they often forget to calculate the fact that their income is going to increase significantly because of the output of the oven. You could do much more per hour, and you could do more hours. So we see consistently people reporting that, hey, I got this paid off much faster than I thought I would, which means you pay less interest to bread pay, and everyone's very happy. On the app side, I see some people also asking about how payments work on the app side. So we work with, again, we're not a bank, so we have to work with credit card processors, other companies that handle these things for us in a secure way. So we work with Stripe that would handle all the payments that your customers send to you when they purchase your product. And then fees wise, it's around the 3% standard credit card processing fee that is standard around the industry. I think in Stripe's case, it's specifically 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. And on our side, there's a platform fee of 5% for the development and the features that we incorporate in the app. At the moment, we're running a trial period until September 1st for everyone to give it a shot and see how you like it. But that platform fee will be there in the future. So the way it works in process is that your customer would pay you for your products. We would receive that money for you, and you just have to click a button in your app, and that money would be transferred, the fees subtracted from it, but that money would be transferred to your bank account, I think usually within 1 or 2 business days.
And it's actually, we don't really get the money, right? It's like the credit card, it's the bank, it's Stripe, right? That's in between that takes the money from the customer and gives it to you. We don't really see the money. It's not that we're sitting on your money or something, or banking with it or something. And that's with most platforms, right? It's the same with like Airbnb or something. The people are something asking about the fees, etc. Of course, there's credit card fees, which is just for everything you do with a credit card, right? There's nothing to do. There's our fees. As Mendel said, it's quite a bit of development, right? It's not easy to build a really real-time, reliable, scalable app like that. It's very high investment. But then there's also the text messages and the email, which is not, people are like, where does that come from? Is that all sort of like in your pocket or something? But that's actually surprisingly expensive to do, because you're sending out like hundreds of text messages, right? If you have 100, 200 potential customers, and these telco providers, right, the Verizons of the world, it's not cheap actually to send text messages to them. So that's our biggest cost actually. It's not sort of a free lunch or something. Our biggest cost is, it's like we have raw material for the oven. The raw material for the app is actually sending the text messages and emails. That is the main cost for us actually. And then there's 2 last questions before we go into Q&A about baking. How do we support bakers in developing or finding their own recipes? I think the Facebook community is a great resource. I think our YouTube channel is a great resource. We can always put you in touch with other customers. We've got quite a few, we've got quite a few people in our network that we've got a few people who are consulting, right? I think about Jeremiah or something, or maybe Lila, or, you could even bring them in, or you could go there or something, and, you probably pay them for the time or something. If you really want to go, like dial things in or do new things,
Yeah, and we also, like I mentioned before, we try to make sure that within the team itself, while we're not professional bakers, we do the Simply Bread business, which doesn't bake bread on a daily basis. We try to be as familiar as possible with the baking process, so that we can help you out as best as we can. Sometimes we'll refer you to someone who does bake on a daily basis, who can really dive into what might be going on. But yeah, on the support side, we want to make sure that you're successful. And if that means that we got to know how fermentation works and why your fridge temperature might be affecting the gumminess of your dough, we're going to know about it.
We should maybe, it's maybe a good suggestion to, I don't know how to do it yet, but have more of a consulting service or something, like, or some of the people we're working with, because we're doing this all the time, right? People have really say like, oh, I really want to dial in my baguettes or something. It's not easy at scale, etc. Then we send them to some people in our network we know that are really good at it and that can consult you. We should maybe do something more, maybe you can book those things through our website or something, right?
Yeah, I think we have the setup kind of in an informal way, where we have these people that will give you assistance. affiliates that are willing to help. But there's definitely an option there to turn this into an actual bookable service where you can get a consult if you need.
Mhm.
I think for the sake of time, if we can move on to some of the Q&A questions that have been posted.
So first question is about the app. Just started a draft of something my state didn't allow payment unless you're inspected and licensed. So the app does allow for you to turn on a feature that is called cash payments, which basically allows your customer to select that they're going to not pay at the time of checkout, but rather they'll pay you via cash or another payment method when they pick up their loaves, which we find a lot of the rural community bakeries and their customers really appreciate. There is no way within the app to turn off the ability for your customers to pay via credit card. So if the customer chooses, they can still select to pay credit card or with Apple Pay or Google Pay, etc. So that's something that we can't really turn off within the app itself, but the option for cash payments is there if your customer chooses it.
But that's depending on the customer, right?
Yeah.
As a baker, you cannot switch it off.
You can't switch off you can switch off the cash payments feature as a baker, but you can't switch off the credit card payments. There will always
this
be,
is, you know, if the state doesn't allow you to take payment, I mean, without being, well, you shouldn't be selling. To be honest, you know, it's like it's a bit of a so
we've seen I think we've seen only a couple states that have this issue with taking online payments. It's these things are difficult to navigate. I've seen other states that also don't allow you to offer pickup from your home location, which means you got to drive to some like parking lot and offer pickup there. So there's every state. I think it'd be good to at some point draw up a list of all the complications in the different states and find ways of maybe navigating them. But this is thankfully not a thing in most states, but there definitely are some states who make it difficult, which is unfortunate because small businesses is the type of businesses we should be supporting.
On the oven purchase, monthly payment varies by how many breads you bake. That's actually not correct. We don't have any. We don't know how many bakes. You know, you can power up the oven and not bake any bread. We don't really know.
Yeah, no, I think that might have been a miscommunication on something we mentioned on BreadPay. But the way the financing with BreadPay works is they'll do a soft credit pull on you and they'll check to see what you qualify for. And potentially you can qualify for the entire amount. If not, you'll have to put a down payment of whatever you don't qualify for. And then they've set forth the payment frequency and the payment structure. And we don't have anything to do with that.
Just to be clear, the financial institution that finances the office is called Bread Financials, and that's just pure luck. It's just, you look it up, it's a large public financial institution in New York. It's called BreadPay. And so that gets me maybe a bit confusing that people think that you can buy an oven by selling bread or something. I don't know. It's just like Visa or something, or like what is it, like Karma or something.
Yeah, right? Or Affirm is one.
Affirm is
a lot
one,
of people know
right?
about.
You know, like the bread pay thing or the bread finance company is something like Affirm that is just by accident named Bread Pay.
Yeah. Someone's asking about how many ovens we have in Virginia. I think it's a little over 10, something like that. We see it growing very rapidly in recent times. So we expect that number to grow pretty soon as well.
Yeah. How does pizza do in the oven? So a little bit of background on pizza. Historically, or since ever, bread is baked by retained heat, right? Typically on a stone. Like it's what we call a hard oven, right? So the thermal energy. So if you look at like videos of old wood-fired baking ovens, they actually fire up the oven with wood, and then once the oven is heated up, they remove all the wood, they wash the oven floor clean with water that actually injects the steam, right? It soaks water into the floor and that releases steam, and then they load their bread. So there's no fire, there's no wood or no fire in the oven. Pizza oven is built differently actually than a baking oven, than a bread baking oven. Although you could do both in both ovens, right? But a pizza is baked with an open flame. Typically, if you go to a southern, like a Napoli pizza or southern Italian pizza, it's actually, you know, you'll see an open fire in the oven, and the baking time is very, very short. It's 2-3 minutes to bake a pizza. No, baking ovens in our oven are sort of mimicked after a baking oven where there's no flame in the oven, right? Or no, because we're talking 800-900 Fahrenheit for a pizza, right? Pizza is probably
I think there's different types of pizzas,
right. And then there's different type,
Yeah.
So we're talking typical southern pizza, like Sicilian pizza or Napolitan pizza. Now, if you go to Roman pizza, that's a little bit different, right? Roman pizza, and we've got a video on your YouTube channel. Roman pizza is baked at a lower temperature, typically in a deck oven. So that's more pizza that's baked in a baking oven, in a bread baking oven, rather than in a wood-fired live flame pizza oven.
Yeah, there's others like deep dish Chicago style.
Also a little bit, right?
There's plenty of pizzas that pizza will definitely work in the oven perfectly fine, but it's if you want that Neapolitan 90-second bake time with just it doesn't this is not it's not a 900 Fahrenheit oven. So while you can do pizza in it and it's going to taste great, it's not the Neapolitan backyard style pizza oven. Yeah,
then you need to buy a pizza oven where you can put in a wood fire. But people have been very successful at it. We've got a video on the YouTube channel with James that does a really good time. And I think we bake it a little bit hotter and shorter. But yeah, it's more like a focaccia or something, you know?
Yeah, and if you go in the Facebook group and you just search pizza, you'll see
a lot
countless countless posts of people who baked pizza in the oven. There's another question here about whether the oven requires special venting if you're putting it in your basement. Officially, the oven does not require any special venting. There is going to be steam that gets released out of the steam release on the top right corner. Now, it's not an excessive amount of steam, but you don't want it to be in too much of an enclosed environment, because it's like showering in a really, really small room. It's going to steam up, and the more bakes you do, the more the steam might affect your walls or something like that. But in most rooms, in most houses, we haven't seen any issues or any need for anything, no hoods or anything like that. According to every state's different, but what we've seen so far, according to like the International Mechanical Code, and most states usually follow that in commercial settings also, the oven would not be required to sit under a hood. There's no grease because we're not baking anything with oil. So generally not, but it's like anything, you should just check what's your particular space like. Is my roof really, really low? Is my room really small? Those would be things that you'd want to consider. Then a question here also, can we heat up the oven remotely? We touched on this also earlier, but at the moment, we don't have that feature enabled. The technology exists. The regulatory side of it is much more difficult to navigate. We obviously want to make sure that the oven is completely safe, and the regulatory agencies are worried that you might have left a rag in the oven or something like that the previous night when you were cleaning it. So there is a pathway to making that possible, but it's not necessarily going to be possible with this oven. We have yet to determine exactly if and how it can be done with this oven, but the technology is definitely there. There are definitely people who make it work with external third-party timers and things like that, but we obviously have nothing to do with that, so you can look into that on your own side.
Then there's a last question about, I would like to sell bundles that include other items, olive oil, herbs, etc. People have been doing flowers, cut flowers through the app, all sort of crochet work.
Yeah, you can sell whatever you want on the app. It's not going to tell you, hey, you can't sell this because it doesn't have flour and water in it. But you can put whatever products you want on the app and sell it within your bake days. We're happy to help you sell whatever it is you want to sell. I know people sell merch, flour, bread knives, cutting boards. Like, you can put whatever you want there, and that's all fine.
You can make a little store. There's a question about does it host a website? So it's sort of like it's sort of a storefront, right? People get a text message, you click on it, your customer clicks on it, and they see like an ordering, like they see like your bake days, what you're selling, they can click on it, buy it. It doesn't really, so what most people do is they just host their own little website on Wix or on Squarespace or whatever, and they just provide a link there.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't even need that. Ultimately, it has the basic functionality that you need. Your customer clicks on the link and they'll be taken to your storefront. They can see it's your bakery. It's got your color theme in there. You've personalized it. It looks like what would be your bakery. It's got your logo and your bakery name. And then it just shows them what bake days are live and what products are available. And and they're able to select what they want and check out. So we are adding more functionality to the storefront. We want it to have like an About Us section and a FAQ section, and there are some things that we're going to do to expand it. But you don't need anything else. There's no requirement to set up a separate website. You can use that by itself, and I think probably most of our customers do use it by itself.
Yeah. App cost was the last one we talked about. It's both the credit card fee, but that's not really, that's just the credit card fee on every credit card sale. And then there is 5% fee that you can or add to the customer's order, or you can take yourself.
Yeah, that's an important note as well, is that we want to make sure that you get to choose who pays what's not currently implemented, but in the future, the 5% platform fee that will be there. If you decide that you want to eat that cost as a business owner, you can do that. If you want to pass it on to your customer, you can do that. And you can also split that cost between you and your customer, whether it's 50-50 or 60-40, however you want to do it. We want to make sure that you as a business owner get to choose how your fees are structured.
See a question here. Can you do a domain redirect to the app storefront? I think so, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you can just put it into a DNS.
Plenty of people do that. You can have your own main domain where you have other information about your bakery, and then when someone clicks the Order Now button, it just takes them to the storefront, which is hosted by us.
We went through our questions. Megan, we still got a few minutes?
Yep.
We can take like maybe 10 more minutes. Do you want to open the floor and just chat a little bit, or?
Yeah. Anybody, if you want to ask any questions, feel free to just open up your mic and
Maybe because if we're going to post this online, so far I think we want to thank everyone for joining. I hope we answered the questions, and know we maybe can take some live questions. Anyone?
Unless everyone's already asked all their questions, which is completely fine as well.
take comments as well.
Don't be shy. We're not biting.
So I have a question about the steam. So
Okay.
when you're baking, like I have gone like a couple different routes. Some people have gone with turning the coils on and off. So currently I am keeping my coils on, and I hit the steam twice. So I'll total of 10 seconds in the beginning. Is that what you guys recommend, or do you have a different recommendation?
So it's completely fine. I think oversteaming is something that is possible, but not generally. I think I've only seen a couple scenarios where people reported that they felt like their oven was oversteaming, and usually they're in high humidity areas. We generally find that a single 5-second steam at the beginning of the bake should be adequate, especially if your oven is full. You have to remember that the vast majority of steam that you get woofing in your face when you open your door halfway through your bake is generally moisture that's coming out of your bread itself. The steam that you inject is really just a jump start to get things going. There is no harm if you want to add another 5 seconds, a few minutes into the bake. A lot of people do that, and if it makes you feel better, then go right ahead. So that's completely fine.
The only thing to know, and people have been noticing this, if you just keep pushing that button, like the steam, because it actually, there's only so much energy in the oven to turn water into steam in a certain amount of time. So if you keep pushing this button, the steam generator just overflows, and there's water actually leaking out of the oven. And people are like, oh, it's not working or something. And that's not how it's just like, if you just keep pushing that button, it will just keep releasing water into the steam compartment, and that will overflow with water. Actually,
yeah, I think it's always important for people to understand how their oven works, and that kind of guides people into understanding why the oven's doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically what the oven is doing. Is that when you click the steam button, it's not turning water into steam with some fancy steam generator. It's really just releasing water into your hot oven, and that hot oven turns water into steam. But if you keep dumping more water into the oven, eventually the area where that water is landing, the tray that it's going into, it's lost its thermal heat at this point, and we need to let it heat back up for a few minutes before it's going to be hot enough to turn more water into steam. there is no concern if you have water leaking out of the oven. That often just means either you have a really high hydration dough or you've just put too much water into the oven. The oven's fully stainless steel. There's nothing that will get damaged by it, but it just means that you're putting more water into the oven than it needs and then it can handle.
There's people asking, sometimes people say like, oh, I push the steam button and I don't see any steam. No, you only see steam if it condenses, right? If it condenses into a cold outside environment, right? Like steam itself, of course, it's not visible. It's only like if it condenses in a colder environment, it will form droplets, and that's what you see, like steam or something. If a steam train in a very hot climate doesn't make any steam. Right. Like you don't see any steam coming out.
I mean, if you're walking down the street in a cold winter day, you see your breath condensing into what looks like steam or something like that. But if it's a warm
condensed
day,
steam, it's condensed water. Actually, right. It's even not steam at that point.
Exactly. And if it's a warm day, you're not going to see it. It's the same type of thing. Inside the hot oven, you're not going to see the steam. It's only visible when it condenses with the colder the room temperature air. But you can generally tell that it's working. You hear the water landing in the oven and crackling, it's turning into steam. And also just if you see the reservoir drop an inch or so with water's flowing through the system and it's not anywhere else, it hasn't like leaked outside on the floor of your oven or something like that, then it's going inside the oven and it's turning into steam. And
I think the thing with the coils, that's inspired by switching on and off the coils, is inspired by
Dutch oven baking.
Dutch oven baking, where a lot of people sort of heat it up and then switch it off and just bake on the retained heat, right? And then take off the lid, which is like opening the steam, and then switching on the oven again. I did that also in my Dutch ovens, and there's people who don't do that. I mean, it's a little bit the same discussion as this, like people baking cold Dutch ovens. There's tons of people who seem to make that work, right? So it's just what you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, there's many ways that you can bake in the oven. For a lot of people, when they're coming out of a Dutch oven, Dutch ovens are very forgiving. The environment is very forgiving, and it makes us look like amazing bakers. Sometimes when we go to an open bake style, whether it's in a home oven or a deck oven like this, we learn that we haven't perfected everything just yet. And one of the ways to make the transition easier for bakers is to try break up the bake into the two separate stages that we've had with our Dutch oven, which is first we have the lid closed in our Dutch oven. It does two things. It contains the steam, but it also shields the dough from the heat of the heating elements, because we want to let the dough rise from that conductive heat that the dough is sitting on. And we don't want to have the heating elements seal up the crust too early and restrict that rise. We don't want that flat ear that everyone sees. We want to have that nice broken up ear that rises nicely. So that's the concept of keeping the lid closed for the first part of the bake. So that's the same idea with this oven, is that if you let the dough sit on the stone, it's going to rise from that conductive heat. And if we turn off the heating elements for at least a few minutes, we ensure that there's no chance we're going to seal up that crust too early. But like Stan said, there's a lot of people who don't do it. If you refine your baking process and it works for you in a way that you don't do it, that's perfectly fine as well. Many ways to skin a cat in this case.
I think it's true that like a Dutch oven is that's why Dutch ovens work so well, because it's a very, it's like, it's really close around the bread, right? It's like a very controlled environment in a way, right? There's not a lot of thermodynamics. There's no like other loaves. There's no like small loaves and big loaves mixed in one oven, right? It's the best controlled environment in a way. Every baker, I mean, I just came back from France where I visited a lot of bakers, and like wood-fired community ovens that's been there for 300 years. I can tell you their loaves do not look beautiful. They look all different and flat, and they still sell them as great bread, and no one complains about it. I think, Instagram, like Instagram made it that we need this beautiful layer and stuff, but it's also like a real baker, that's not what they, like professional full-time bakers, like even in Europe or something, like look at the loaves, they don't look like that.
Yeah, we're our biggest critics, obviously. As always, we always look at what is a beautiful loaf as a great crumb, and we will find something that we don't think is perfect about it.
I think one of the questions always coming back is about the after loading, that the temperature drops and comes back to temperature. That is actually because we actually measure the actual air temperature in the oven. We cannot measure the stone temperature. It's technically too complicated. But it's the stone that's transferring the heat into the dough, right? It's not the air temperature that much. It's only when you form a crust that you're using the coils and sort of direct radiant heat to form a crust and caramelize the loaf. But so a lot of people are like, oh, I opened it, I loaded, I closed the door, and it dropped 100. Yeah, of course, it's just a cold air from outside, and if it's really cool in here, I have the same. Like, it really drops. Because there's no convection like in a convection oven. It takes time for natural convection to happen to sort of even out the heat, and so. But the stones, don't worry, the stones are hot. On top of that, a lot of kitchen ovens, the temperature you see on the display is actually not the measured temperature. It's sort of like a simulated set temperature, right? You put it at, you put your dial on your oven at 350. It doesn't really read the temperature, right? It's just like a display is like the temperature you set it to in a way. So here we measure the temperature, and so that's sometimes a bit confusing for people.
Yeah, I see there's a question here about, I guess, doing donation style bake days, which I know a lot of people do. And while the app is not built to do something like that natively, that there is technically ways to be able to do it. At the moment, actually, the app doesn't allow you to sell something for free, but it is something that we're working on in the future. If you wanted, for example, to offer something for free as basically a $0 product, you could technically do that in the future. Again, I don't think we'll see most people using this in that style. But
maybe we should come up with a donation. Because if people have been doing this, right, more of a donation style. The challenge, of course, on our side is we have servers to run that cost electricity and text messages to send. And
I think a feature like something that allows you to select that, do I want to sell this product as a donation product versus a specific price, or
do product. Like between, like, people can choose. I mean, that would be something interesting to say, like, people can choose between $1 and $10, right, or something. But at least maybe then your ingredients are covered and our cost is covered on our side, because we've got people, engineers on staff, and there's a lot of cost to running something like this. Like,
yeah, and I mean, it'd be interesting for you also, because you would see that if people are consistently paying more than you thought you were going to charge, you can charge more.
Yeah.
So.
Anyone?
We have one more question here. Do you recommend we test our loaves on a stone in our oven? In our oven using steam if we have not done that, to mimic the SDO oven to see how
it's a good idea. I think I haven't really seen people do that.
It's gonna confuse you more.
It's not going to be an apples for apples comparison. I think you'll be able to tell how well your dough reacts to the open baking style, but the steam inside a convection oven is very different.
Also, you almost need to block. That's the other problem with convection ovens, because kitchen ovens are so cheap to build because there's no inertial mass to it, and they use convection, right? They use a fan to circulate the air around. That's so much more efficient, so you can build a much lighter, cheaper oven. If you do an open bake, the big challenge, you almost need to block your fan. But if you block your fan, your oven overheats and breaks down, and because it's not built to do this. So I wouldn't personally. I think like an open bake in a kitchen oven is really hard. There is people who've been successful at it, but that's like a science project. It's so hard. It's so uncontrollable. I find it so hard to do. I never really.
I don't think it's really necessary either.
And it's not going to give you a lot, right?
Yeah, I think everyone has to. It's either you go through that experience struggling with your home oven and then not really knowing exactly how well it's going to be comparable to the Simply Bread oven itself, or you just dive into it when you get your Simply Bread oven and go through the learning curve like everyone else does on that side as well. So we've seen everyone come through successfully with learning how to. A lot of people just their first bake that they put in the Simply Bread oven, it's a great bake and it turns out beautiful. And some people just have to refine their steps slightly to make it work, but it's a learning curve that's generally very short.
I think an additional question was good to know. So the SBO mimics the Dutch oven process. Well, the oven doesn't really mimic it. We just give you the tools to mimic the Dutch oven.
Yeah, right? you can use the oven in any way you want, and if you want to try and mimic the Dutch oven process, then you can by just turning off your heating elements.
Yeah, that's what when some people don't turn off their kitchen oven heating with their Dutch ovens either, right? So you just do the same. It's just like a different, like it's a big Dutch oven in a way, right? You've got, instead of the lid you can take off, you can open and close a steam release rather than switching on and off your oven. at a certain time in your baking process, you can switch on and off the coils in the oven. So it's pretty much the same as just like how you wanted. I sometimes forget to do the steam. Loaves turn out fine. It's like, to be honest, it's like, we're also obsessed by it, but I've just sometimes forget to do the steam, and the loaves are fine.
That's something to remember also, is that your Dutch oven, you don't actually need to put steam in, but because it's such a well-sealed environment, the moisture that comes out of the dough itself acts as the steam. And yeah, I've seen countless bakers who either forget to use the steam, or whatever the situation might have been, they didn't put steam in the oven, and their loaves turned out great. They maybe noticed a slight difference in shininess on the crust, and arguably better potentially, but yeah, you could potentially bake it. And that's why it's also important, like your question, Megan, from before, which was, should I do 10 seconds or 5 seconds? Like, you technically don't need to do anything. So that's always good to know. If you have a full load of dough in there, it's going to release so much moisture that it's going to act like a Dutch oven, and the oven seals it very well and keeps it all there.
We're sort of you've got 1 minute left, so one very last question. Anyone?
Hi. So is this considered a commercial oven? Because I need to go to my town. I can't build a stove in the basement, but I'm hoping that the Simply Bread oven will pass to be able to go in the basement, because it's not a fixed oven.
Yeah. So this is, and I had lengthy discussions with lawyers and with regulatory, etc. From our understanding, this use of the word commercial oven in cottage laws, etc., doesn't have a real legal base, right? Because there's no, if you ask like, what is a commercial oven? Like, there's no, like, KitchenAids are used in professional kitchens all the time. Are they commercial? So I can't use them? Like, like people say about like, oh, I've got a commercial fridge here, but it's just a fridge. Like, like I've got a Wolf range in my kitchen. People say like, oh, it's because it's 220. Yeah, but I've got a Wolf range, a high-end kitchen
most
oven.
220, yeah.
Like most ovens are 220, right? So it's not that. So it's a little bit of a fuzzy. We don't consider it as a commercial appliance. The sort of commercial domestic thing is a marketing term manufacturers use to sell it into one or another market. It's not really illegal. There's no agency, there's no government, there's no oven police that sort of, it's just a company that puts like professional or commercial oven on their marketing material to sell into that market. Do inspectors agree with that? That's another problem. Some say like, oh, this is commercial. Like, what is commercial about? It's hundreds of people, thousands of people using this in their homes. It's not commercial. They're like, oh yeah, but it is like 220. It's like, yeah, but my kitchen oven is also 220. It's like, yeah, but it's because it has Wi-Fi, or like, I don't know, what is commercial to it? Tell me, yeah. Right?
I think most regulatory counties, etc., the people that you're going to be dealing with to get your license, they really just want to hear whether or not it's built for commercial or built for residential. We actually build this for our home micro bakers to use in their homes. So it is built for residential use, and we do not consider it commercial anyway. And that is generally sufficient for most inspectors. But if there are any arguments that some people might say, hey, it bakes 12 loaves at a time, it must be commercial. What does that mean? What if my oven at home is big enough and I can fit 12 loaves in there? Like, again, there's no definition of commercial. And I think most of the time they just want to see that the company is not marketing this as a commercial product, which we don't. We really build this for people to use in their homes.
And yeah, so it's really often up to the inspector, and these inspectors can be a little bit tough or sort of like rigid in their thinking. But there's plenty of arguments. And of course our oven is also used in commercial. There's coffee shops, there's schools. It's also used in commercial settings. But that doesn't mean it's commercial, right? It's like, people use a whisk or something, or a home oven in commercial kitchens. Like
we're not going to tell someone they can't buy it if they want to move it into their coffee shop.
There's no real
they can do that. But I think we've dealt with this quite a bit in the past, and when there are certain issues and the county reaches out to us, the health department reaches out to us for any whatever it is, we'll assist in answering their questions and alleviating those concerns. And thus far, we've had success with even the
Yeah.
hardest nosed inspectors. So
Yeah. I think most important in that discussion is that you don't pretend to be a commercial operation, right? They sort of try to legally, or in their wording, they use that word commercial appliances, but they don't have really a legal basis for that, right? If you really use those arguments, I think what they want to see, which is understandable, that it is sort of a cottage business, right? That this is not becoming a commercial operation. Like, where is that sort of, like, they use a little bit that sort of commercial appliance as a, as a stick to hit you, but I don't know, anyway.
they're looking for problems, but
Yeah.
I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah. Talk to them.
Okay.
I think we're sort of over
Wrapped up.
time.
Yep.
Thank you very much. This was fun. We try to do this maybe once a month or something. There's still some other webinars, I think, on the agenda about, like, maybe some other practicalities about how to run your micro bakery. We're doing the recipes video, so there's plenty of information.
We have a monthly newcomers webinar, so anybody who has an oven has more in-depth questions about how to use it specifically. We have a couple of our bakers work with us on that, and then we also have a webinar coming up next week with Macy Merlack, who she works with us. She has an oven herself, and she's going to be talking about her micro bakery and how she started it. So if you go to our Instagram or our newsletter, we have the links there. So feel free to sign up. Thank you so much, Stan and Mendel, for sharing with us today, and thank you everybody for joining and asking your questions and sharing your thoughts with us. So
Thank you.
until next time.
Bye.
Bye.